Hey guys, and welcome back to today's video where you are cooking in the kitchen with Mr. Cole, and my good friend Dakota is here as well. Say hi, Dakota.
What's up?
So today what we're going to be making is what's known as SOS, or cream beef on toast. This recipe was shared with me a long time ago by a former World War II vet, 82nd Airborne. Later, after World War II, went on and actually served as a cook in the military. And one of his favorite things was this very dish we're preparing today. Now, they used to prepare it with canned beef, but what we're actually going to be doing is using ground meat. Now, in particular, I'm actually using ground deer meat. And I actually enjoy that a lot more just from the standpoint it doesn't make near as much fat in the food. So it's something to kind of keep in mind. So what I've already got going, I've got a pretty heavy bottom Dutch oven over here. I've already got it. It's preheated. It should be hot. I don't know if you knew it or not, but your pan should always be a little bit hot when you pour your oil into it. So we got hot, and let's go ahead and add our ground meat to it. We can hear it already starting to cook. And I'm going to use this little device. If you don't have one, it is fantastic. By Pampered Chef is actually where my wife got this one. And it allows you to break up the meat really fine. And so we'll sit here and we'll let this get started browning, and we'll walk away from it for a few minutes. I like using this heavy pan. You can use a non-stick pan as well, but it just helps kind of keep it from sticking a little bit. So we'll get that kind of worked out. Now, the guy who taught me how to do this, it was actually awesome. He had so much patience. He would actually take a fork like this, and it was, you could tell he really loved about this dish. And that's what I think anything you cook, you know, it's a response of love. And so he would actually take his fork, and I don't know, can you see this on the camera? He would actually get in there with a fork, and he would really slow go through and do this, like just crumble up the meat using a fork so it made the very smallest pieces. And that's just the way he liked it. And what's interesting, I'm still the same today. There will be no hunks of meat inside this dish. So while that ground beef is getting started cooking, let's go back over. Very few ingredients doing this, so we're going to use one onion. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of get it real quick. I admit, one of the things, my biggest cheats, I know like a professional cook would take his knife and, you know, dice this onion up. I'm not a professional cook. I'm a physics teacher by trade, remember? Yeah. And so what I'm actually going to do is use a mandolin slicer after I finish butchering this, and finding out apparently an onion in the cut actually kind of burns a little. I've never noticed that before.
It does have an enzyme that breaks down proteins in it, so it makes sense. It does.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, it has an enzyme that breaks down protein?
You can actually use that to tenderize a steak.
And there you go. You can use an onion to tenderize a steak. What I'm going to do is put it on my mandolin slicer, which I've already got set to like a thick chop. And so we've got our onion ready. Let's go back over and kind of check the progress of our meat we're grounding. So we come back over, and I'm trying to, you know, for me it's a judge of, I like to, once I've browned about half the meat, and again, I'm really diligent to use this and actually work the meat down into like that crumble. And again, you can use the fork. It takes a lot longer. And like I said, that to me was always the dedication of the love somebody has to a meal is based on, you know, the sweat equity that you put into it. So I've got that down to about 50%. And this is also a Pampered Chef thing. I feel like I should be getting some kind of a fee from those guys tonight. It's a little flexible cutting board that's actually very handy to use. And so now let's get this in here. And again, I used a little olive oil at the beginning. You could use vegetable oil. Sorry for the flying onion there, Dakota.
Yeah, that's good.
You could use any kind of oil. I'm starting to actually get a little teary-eyed here over this. These are pretty good onions, you know? Okay, so while we're sitting here, continuing to let the onions kind of cook down a little bit and finish browning the meat, one of the things I might also say, if you use ground beef for this, which you can, I would suggest using a lean meat, just so it's not, it will be very fatty. Otherwise, I hope you at least drain the meat.
Yeah, drain the meat well.
Yeah, because this would be a little intense otherwise. And I'm going to go ahead and start getting the milk ready. And so as we kind of work this up a little bit here, I'm going to add to a shaker bottle. And I love this shaker bottle because it's got a little spring in here. I'm going to add a 1/3 cup of flour to it. See if I can do this and not spill it.
Oh.
You know what? This is actually kind of difficult.
Oh.
So much for trying to be like really gung-ho and measure everything out. When Rachel Ray does it, it never happens like this. I feel like there's a good 1/3 cup of flour in there. So I'm going to come back, grab a measuring cup, and add... Alright, so we got our flour in there, and now we're going to come back. I'm going to take some milk. I'm going to add 1 cup of milk into that 1/3 cup of, and I should point out it's self-rising flour. And this is what we're actually going to use to thicken it when it's over. So I'm going to go ahead, so 1/3 cup of self-rising flour and 1 cup of milk in there. And I'm going to hand that to my filmer, which should be interesting now for him to shake that and not shake the camera all over the place. And while he is filming my entire house. So right now I've got Dakota in the process of doing the shaking.
Oh,
Shake,
yeah.
shake, shake.
I gotta swap pants.
Shake, shake, shake. Man, that's an old song. Shake your booty. Your booty. You even know that song?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I didn't know you kids. It's hard to tell what you pay attention to. All right, so we got that going. All right, so at this point, what we've got is we've got our meat and our onions together. We've actually got our, we've already got some milk and flour mixed together. I'm gonna throw in 1 whole stick of butter now, just because, I'll be honest, it tastes really good. So I'm gonna throw in the stick of butter, which actually helps out a little bit in terms of what I'm doing, because this deer meat doesn't have a whole lot of fat, so it's actually a little bit hard to get it to thicken without it. Now, the guy that taught me to do this, he used to put in a little bit of butter when he made it, and then he would always, when he made his pot, he'd throw in like a whole stick of butter right on top of it and just let it melt, and that's how he served it, was like basically garnished with a stick of butter in it.
Stick of butter of garnish, yes.
That's
Yeah.
man cooking.
Yes, yes it is.
That is man cooking. Well, I can't say a lot. I'm still throwing a stick of salted butter in here. And you can use margarine as well. Just, I was at Sam's the other day. Sam's Club doesn't carry margarine. They only carry butter. So that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting some seasonings in. So I'm going to throw in 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. Obviously, if you threw in a teaspoon of iodized salt, you would probably make this into jerky. So that was kosher salt. I'm going to also throw in a teaspoon of ground black pepper as well. Yeah, these cooking videos, I think I'm going to do, what I like about them is like, most people are like, we need to use some fine, fresh ground black pepper, blah, blah. Who does all this stuff in the kitchen? Most of the time you have what? I don't have like fresh herbs. I'm going to go out. We do have some rosemary, honestly.
Oh, rosemary's on. Fresh rosemary is one of the only herbs.
And it grows really easily.
It does.
Oh yeah, back to this. And so now I'm going to add a whole tablespoon of onion powder. And I like throwing it in here on the meat and letting it kind of cook just for a second. It feels like it could just get a little more flavor in the air, literally. And now I'm going to throw in a whole tablespoon of garlic powder. Throw in the entire tablespoon of garlic powder in there. So that's it. Only salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder. That's it. So teaspoon of salt and pepper, and a tablespoon on the other. And now I'm going to start mixing this up. And while this kind of finishes getting together a little bit, Dakota's finishing shaking up I'm going to add 4 cups of milk to this. The meat's already good and brown. So in total we're using 5 cups of milk. Oops, extra splash. I have actually made this with dried milk before, and it still tasted good. I've made it with condensed milk, like canned milk, if you're apocalypse planning. It still works out good.
Just be a little sweeter.
And so now, and essentially what I'm going to do is sit here for just a moment and bring this up right up to the point where it's about ready to boil. And I guess it's just because of how I was taught to do this, he always used a fork to work up and keep the bottom of the pan clean, because it is easy, especially if you get it too hot. Now obviously if you're using a non-stick, this would be a terrible idea. See somebody now. Mr. Cole said to just use the piece of an onion skin. Thought you were watching out for that.
Okay.
What's your role here? Alright, so while this is heating up, I'm going to go ahead and turn my oven on the broil and get it started. Broil? It's a word I can barely enunciate, you know that? I'm going to turn the oven on the broil though, and I'm going to go ahead and grab this pan of bread that we've already laid out. And I'm going to give you a little advice. I prefer white bread for this. Wheat bread does not taste as well with it. You can also use Texas toast, but it becomes too bready. So I'm very particular. So as soon as the oven gets preheated, we'll put this in here. But I'm going to be honest, usually I don't try and do this while I cook. I wait till after, because if you're not paying a lot of attention in the broiler, you will incinerate this bread. So something to think about. You can use your toaster if you want to. The problem with the toaster doesn't make it as hard. And when you pour this on the toast, it gets soggy really fast. Now, if you were like really patient and wanted to do 1 piece of toast at a time, this might work. It might.
Probably would.
So here we are back, and what we're going to do is start adding. I'm going to let Dakota start adding, and I'm going to... We've basically brought it up to a pretty gentle boil. Boil. Hey, other words I struggle to say, like broil. And I'm going to sit here, and I'm going to continue to work this until it's thick. And basically what I'm doing is I'm keeping it from sticking it to the bottom. Although the good thing is this is a kind of a thick bodied pan. And it is already getting nice and thick. And of course you could use more salt and pepper as you desired. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue to cook this till it gets about the thickness I want. I'm going to check our toast, which our toast. See, this is why you shouldn't do it at the same time. Don't let that stick. Oh, there's the toast. You almost got burned. So I'm going to flip the toast over real quick.
Yeah, don't let this stick and then you touch me with the pan. Thank you.
Oh, come on. It's not like when I almost stabbed you with a tractor spear.
Yes.
All right, so let's put this back in and put that back in the oven. And I'm going to turn off this eye. Bam. And I think that is...
It's pretty thick. Whenever I was stirring that, I wasn't paying attention. I was really just turning the pot around in circles.
I'm going to move that to the back eye. Yeah, and this is where Leon would actually throw in a whole stick of butter.
That's garnish.
Yeah. What it was actually really pretty to see, like this big stick of butter sitting there just kind of melting and oozing out in every direction. So when I'm sitting here trying to decide, is this going to stick or am I going to be all right? Let's check our toast. Toast is still good. All right, so we've got our meal ready, and this is basically my preferred how I like to plate this dish. And so I don't do the big stick of butter in the middle, but what I like to do is this. I like to get a couple of pieces of bread, whatever you can fit on the plate, dip some out, Get a nice little, and again, that's where the broiler in the oven works so good. Oh yeah, get that. And now, I like to just throw a little blob, in this case, a little country crock right in the middle of each one. A little on the countertop too for good luck. Little Dollar General brand garlic salt, because usually for me it needs just a little bit more salt. So I like a little garlic salt. Anyway, there you go, guys. Hope you enjoy this recipe. Look how pretty it is. Look, like everything.
It is actually like just kind of like running down and everything. That is.
It's pretty cool, huh? All right, guys. So from my kitchen to yours, good luck and happy cooking. We'll see you.
Bye. Are you good? Do you need a tissue?
Actually, that's a good onion. Did it get you?
Yeah, it actually did a little bit.
I mean, I just want you to know that this dish is very important to me right now. These people that believe you should have a vegetable.
What's a vegetable? Right? Oh, no, it's a grain. Never mind. I tried.
I'm a school teacher.
All right, and